Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Estrella virtual visit series. I'm Allison Campbell with Estrella Consulting, and I'm so excited to welcome Stefanie Perrell from University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina. Our virtual visit series is designed to introduce you all to a variety of colleges and allow for us to get to know the institutions and their staff in a more personal way. So thank you, Stefanie, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you don't mind just taking a quick moment and just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about you and how long you've been at USC.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. So again, my name is Stefanie Perrell. I am the Senior Assistant Director for In-State Recruitment here at the University of South Carolina. I've been at USC for almost 20 years. I came here for grad school and just never left. And I've been on campus in different roles. I've worked in housing, I've worked in conferences, I've worked in the College of Engineering and Computing, and now in undergraduate admissions.
That's great. What did you get your graduate degree in?
Higher education and student affairs.
Perfect. That sounds good. And what a better, there's really no better preparation to being in admission and being able to talk about all the wonderful things at USC when you get to kind of be in all those different facets.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a great opportunity. And you're in charge of in-state admission, you said.
Yes. Yes. So I oversee our South Carolina recruitment team who travels around the state of South Carolina to high schools and works on the recruitment of our in-state students.
Okay, great. So we were talking a little bit before we got started, just how University of South Carolina is such a hot school for us at Estrella. We work with students all over the US, but a large number of our students are from Ohio, Northeast Ohio, Greater Columbus area, but it's very, very popular and on many students' lists. So for those people that might not be from South Carolina or be privy to know what it's all about, can you tell us a little bit about your institution, your location, the enrollment, and really anything that you think is very unique or a point of pride?
Sure. So we are the state flagship institution for South Carolina. We are located in the city of Columbia, which is the state capital, right in the center of the state. So we're about 2 hours from the mountains, 2 hours from the beach, 2 hours from Charlotte, North Carolina, and about 3 hours from Atlanta. So also being in the state capital, we are literally like if I were able to get to the roof of my building, I could see the state capitol from here. So we're right close to the state capitol. Some students even walk through the grounds to get to campus from where they live. So we are right in the center of right in the center of the city. So you would consider us an urban campus.
Okay.
But as you can kind of see in my background here, we also have our historic horseshoe, which is over 200 years old. It's some of the oldest buildings in the city of Columbia. So even though we're in the city, there's parts of campus that feels like we're not in a city. So we are, like I said, also a large school. So we are spread over 1 square mile at least and expanding each year. So our student population for undergrads is just over 25,000 students. And if you add in grad students, it's just over 35,000. So it's a large campus. We have over 100 majors. We have over 350 different degree combinations. If you start putting in those majors with minors and double majors and cognates. So a lot of opportunity here for students to choose, an academic program that really fits their interest too.
That's great. You're mentioning, you're in charge of the overseeing like South Carolina recruitment. Is there more benefit or like an edge if you're a South Carolinian versus if you're someone looking to come there out of state? Like maybe what does like the admission parameters look like from that angle?
Yeah. So being that we are, the state flagship institution, we do have a duty to provide education and access to the residents of South Carolina. But when it comes to admissions, about 50, well, actually, our student population as a whole is about 57% South Carolina residents. So it's actually not like a huge, I mean, it is a majority of our students, but it's not a huge majority. And when you look at just the freshman class alone, it's actually a little bit closer to 50-50 in-state and out-of-state students. That increase in in-state students comes from our transfer student population. But just numbers wise, there are less students in the state of South Carolina than there are students nationally that are applying to South Carolina. So just because of that larger number of out-of-state residents that are applying, it is a little bit more competitive for those out-of-state students when
Okay.
it comes to applications and admission.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel like with some of the other schools we've done interviews with, they have like a specific number, that 83, like in North Carolina, 83% of their students have to be North Carolinians, leaving such a small fraction of the pool to out of state international athletes, whatever it might be. So that's really interesting that you just said like you don't have as many South Carolinians sometimes to fill the class that you're looking for. But as far as like trends, like I said, we see so many students that are interested in South Carolina, and it's become, less of a target school and more of a reach because it is becoming more competitive. So can you speak to any of the other trends that you're maybe seeing from an admission standpoint?
Yeah. So some of the trends we're seeing, one is we're currently test optional, and we've been test optional since COVID. And really since COVID, um, we see about 50% of our students applying test optional. And we don't have a preference either way. If students choose to not submit test scores, then we just rely more heavily on their transcripts and their grades in their classes. So we are seeing that trend is really kind of continuing, that students are choosing to be test optional. We do make that decision each year. So for all of the 2025 terms, we have decided to be test optional. And when it comes to the 2026 terms, we'll usually make that decision in the summertime before applications open. Um, we're also seeing more applicants that are female year to year. So
Okay.
our population of women is like slightly increasing year to year. And when it comes to just application growth in general, we're seeing approximately 15% growth year over year for applications. So
That's wild.
this freshman class, we had just over 52,000 applications. Um, so for fall 2024, we don't have numbers yet for fall 25. And then fall 23, we had just over 46,000. So
Wow.
application numbers are increasing about 15% year to year.
We did a little bit of a investigative dig on the effect that athletics has on the uptick in applications. And, I'm a women's basketball fan. I played women's basketball in college and I coached. So have loved watching Dawn Staley and the University of South Carolina women's basketball team. But to see like the visibility that comes from winning a national championship or being in, the Final Four or something like that, it's really interesting. So it would be interesting to see, depending on how that team continues to do, like, will it continue to grow at that rate or will it kind of taper off? And I know there's other demographics that kind of go into that, but we've seen like a lot of the colleges that experience a national championship, especially when women's basketball was was like the hottest ticket in town last year.
Yes.
If that really fueled some of the applications that, students maybe just threw their name in the hat because they're like, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. So very.
Maybe Dawn Staley's won 3 national championships for us over the last few years. So perhaps, I don't know that we have any data pointing directly to that, but it could play a role. Yeah.
I'll send you the blog that we did. We did actually a blog about how that kind of factored in. Like University of Connecticut's like men's basketball team, they won last year and they had like 20,000 more apps. So it's kind of wild. But like I said, and I think we also had I don't know if it was Forbes or New York Times just recently did an article, and it was like move over Ivies, like these Southern schools
Yep.
are they're the big draw right now. So I feel like it had Georgia Tech on the cover. We won't say anything about that.
It did mention USC a couple times too.
Yeah, yeah. So we are noticing that, we know that, and we're trying to turn our kids, like make them aware, I know this is a hot school. I know your friends are playing there. I know it is awesome and it's warm and they've got athletics and great academics and it's close to, to the beach or whatnot. But you have to up your game up a little bit if you want to be considered because it's not nearly as not that it was ever easy, but it's just getting more and more competitive every year.
Yeah.
So that was great. What would you say? Okay, let's go back to mention testing a little bit. Do you have any are you direct admit to a major or do you apply to the school and then, after a year or two, you get to declare a major? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, on your application to USC, you'll be asked to select a first choice major. So, in that sense, you are being admitted for that major. We also ask students to include a second choice, like an optional second choice major.
Okay.
And so there is a little bit of a caveat though with nursing. So nursing itself is one of our more competitive majors, and it is not technically direct admit because students still need to apply for upper division nursing once they get here. And so there's, that's another reason why we ask students for a potential second choice major. And also our nursing advisors work with students to have kind of a contingency plan in place that if they're not able to get into upper division, they have a backup that they're easily able to shift to. So sort of direct admit, but not necessarily. And also once you do get here, it's really very easy to change your major into most of our majors. So you're not tied to what you put on your application or what you're admitted for necessarily once you actually get here.
Okay, that's interesting to know. I guess I was going with when I brought up testing and then completely segued from it. If your tests were necessary for a nursing or a STEM major of some sort where, your test optional, but if you want to be considered for XYZ program, you need to have a certain test score.
That's a good question. So no, we are test optional, 100% test optional for every major. Also, we are test optional for our honors college, and we are test optional for our institutional merit scholarships.
Okay. And what would be the likelihood that a student would receive a merit scholarship? Are you pretty generous with merit scholarships, or is that more competitive? Like, could you talk a little bit about that?
So I would say they're pretty competitive, but a third of our incoming freshmen typically receive a merit scholarship. And the competitiveness really depends on the class. So every class competes against itself. So you can actually see on our website a listing of all of the institutional merit scholarships. And you'll see like a profile of student who received that scholarship the previous year, but
Okay.
that's just a profile for last year. So it's like a ballpark for this current year because every class competes against itself. And those aren't like minimums that we're looking to have students meet each year. It really can vary from year to year what that profile looks like for each scholarship.
Okay. And is that something that they're automatically considered for at point of application, or does it require a separate application
Yeah.
with an essay or interview or something like that?
That's a good question. Yeah. So our top scholarships for students, the top three scholarships that we offer are only offered to honors college students. So like students who
Okay.
are also accepted to the honors college. So in that sense, there is that extra application piece. But when it actually comes to applying for each specific scholarship, no, just applying to the university / applying to the honors college for those top scholarships would put a student into consideration for those scholarships.
Okay. So top three scholarship amounts for incoming freshmen are only afforded to the honor students, but additional scholarships are rendered at the time of admission.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I'm going to like I told you, I like to take notes just so in case someone misses something and they want to go back and ask us a question about it. I want to have it all on digital paper. Okay, so what would you say right now is a really cool major that's offered at South Carolina that might be something that is very trendy right now or very unique to your institution?
Ooh, unique and trendy.
Or you can go
So
with popular too. If you have like a really popular, oh, we're really known for this, like that could work
yeah.
as well.
So a couple of things. I would say what we're probably most known for is our business school. We have the #1 international business program in the country, and also our nursing program. We have a top ranked nursing program as well. Um, And some of the more, I guess you could say, trendy majors kind of fall within our College of HRSM, Hospitality, Retail, and Sports Management. So
Okay.
we have a retailing major, sports management. So those are kind of like cool, I guess, pretty, I don't know, fun, cool majors. But I think there's also a couple that do fly a bit under the radar. And um, they are in our College of Engineering and Computing and our Molina-Rowley College of Engineering and Computing. So USC actually has some really great engineering and computing programs that I think, get overshadowed by one of the other schools in our state that has just a larger program for
Mm,
engineering and computing majors. So electrical engineering is actually a really popular major at a lot of other schools. And we have an amazing electrical engineering program here that just isn't quite as popular as the other
okay.
majors in engineering. Um, we also have a major called computer information systems, which
Okay.
is like a combination of computer science and business. So a student can actually go like either direction when they graduate, because you'll be learning enough coding and computer science to do a computer science job, but also enough business to work in business as well. So I think that those kind of fly under the radar a bit. And we also have the only aerospace engineering bachelor's degree in the state of South Carolina.
Awesome. All right. Put that down too. Awesome. So you mentioned a little bit about the honors program. We have a lot of students that inquire about honors programs, and could you give us a little bit of background on what it would take to apply to or be considered for honors? And then my second part will be just telling us about like what that entails to be an honors student. So we'll start with how do you become an honors student?
Yeah. Well, first, you need to apply to USC. And then, as part of the application to USC, you would answer a question that says, do you want to apply for the Honors College? And if you select yes, then you will get access to the Honors College application, usually within 2 days after you submit the USC application.
Okay.
That application, the Honors College application deadline is November 15th. And that application consists of one short answer, basically, why are you interested in the Honors College? Two additional essays. One is a thinking essay where you talk about what you're intellectually curious about. Another, we call it our doing essay. So talk about something impactful that you have done. And then we'll also ask for a letter of recommendation and an optional resume. So that's what the application itself looks like. And
Okay.
we do also have the top ranked honors college in public universities since 2012. So it's a great program. We have over 600 honors course options that we offer each year. And the
Okay.
average class size for standalone honors sections is just 18.
Oh,
So
wow.
we have a lot of support for our honors students. Housing, service learning, study abroad, research, and all through, special funding for those things, as well as dedicated staff members to help honor students with those things. Um,
Okay.
and the criteria that we're looking for, the middle 50% of what we're seeing are honor students falling in that are admitted, an SAT of 1430 to 1530, an ACT of 32 to 35, and usually ranked in the top 5% of their class.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you had mentioned that the top three scholarships for an incoming freshman class are typically given to an honor student that fulfills a lot of those criteria. But is there any scholarship or monetary incentive to being a part of the honors program aside from those scholarships? Like
So being in the honors
stipends
college
or something?
alone doesn't give you a scholarship. So
Okay.
not necessarily, it's more about the experience when you're here.
Okay. And is there a housing option for honor students, like a living learning community?
Yeah. So all of our freshmen will live in the honors residence hall, which is pretty centrally located on campus. It has a couple classrooms, a dining hall. It's one of the newer buildings too.
Okay. And like priority registration or
Yes.
okay,
Priority registration for classes. Yep.
that's great. Do you ever listen to, maybe you've heard about the podcast, it's called College Process Podcast?
No.
Okay, so I listen to it religiously. I love it. And this is honestly it's more of like a virtual offshoot of that with the video. But his name's John Durante and he does these like 30 to 40-minute interviews, kind of similar to what we're doing. But there was one specifically from maybe a year or so ago, and it was on South Carolina's Honors College. So sometimes he'll find like subsets of universities or like different academic departments or honors colleges, and he talks more about them. So that's where I'd heard how strong the honors college was. That's why I'm asking a lot of questions about it. And just how a public university This is a really great way to keep some of your like really top in-state talent in state. So it was a really interesting conversation that he had, and they did a great job of really highlighting some of the benefits of being an honors college member at USC. Okay. Do you have any type of niche programs at USC? Like we've seen some alternate start programs. So if like a student maybe doesn't get in right away, they can start at a different campus or maybe like a summer bridge. Do you have any campuses abroad or like cool student success initiatives that are going on? So just again, something that's kind of outside the box that's unique for your students.
Yeah, I think one thing that we have that's pretty unique is something called an experience transcript. So it's a transcript that can kind of go alongside your academic transcript that is um, detailing all of the things you were involved in while you were on campus. So
Okay.
it can range from student clubs to sports, leadership organizations, all of those things. So it's kind of something that students can use as a supplement to their resume when they're applying for jobs once they've graduated. Um, and it also will cover all the entire time you're at USC. So it's just like it could be a potentially really like robust item for a student to be able to provide to an employer to show that they're an engaged and involved person.
That's cool. So is that something that's maybe run through your career services office, or is that like something that the advisor would take initiative in? Like, how does one participate in that?
Exactly sure how that which office is responsible for that. But once students get here, they can start that conversation with their academic advisor.
Cool. Well, that sounds good. I like that. All right. We have just a few more minutes, so let me see. Okay, this is a good one. I think too, because a lot of students, especially from our area, they want to take advantage of a spring break or a long weekend to do like a southern swoop of visits. You know, they're going to go hit a bunch of the colleges in the Carolinas over a few days span. But do you track or consider demonstrated interest? So if a student comes and visits your campus and takes a official tour or does an info session, does that matter? Is it important?
Um, I would say that it matters and it's important for that particular student to see if USC is a good fit. Um, so we encourage everyone to visit campus because USC is a great fit for a lot of people, but it may not necessarily be the perfect fit for everyone. And that campus visit can really help a student figure that out. So we do keep track of people who do come to campus and attend campus events, but it doesn't factor into admission.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I mean, we always are huge proponents of our students getting on campuses, getting a feel for it, asking the questions, can they see themselves there? But also, if your time is really limited and you might not have an opportunity to hit every single school you want to, some students were tell like go to the ones that it'll actually matter.
Yeah.
But again, if this is high on your list, you should certainly check it out. We get such positive feedback about the campus, and most people that visit fall in love with it. But I just wanted to know from just like an actual DI standpoint if it was something that you took into account. Okay, we're about at our half-hour mark. So I would love to know who is the most in your mind, because you've been there 20 years, maybe the most impactful alumnus, or maybe someone who has come to campus as a speaker or a presenter that has been very notable recently.
Um, let's see. Okay, so I have a couple answers. I
That's
can't
fine. Most
start
people do. Everybody's like, okay, like I have one from like a student standpoint, as like a staff standpoint, as an alum, like,
can't narrow it down to just one. Um, okay, so some of our one of our most notable, I think, hometown heroes right now is Dawn Staley. She's the coach of the women's basketball team. And she's just kind of like a little bit of a hometown celebrity right now.
Mhm.
So she's not an alumni, but one of our alumni who did play for Dawn Staley, Asia Wilson,
Mhm.
she currently plays for the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA. And she has been a three-time WNBA MVP. So I think she's pretty awesome. Um, Also, one of the more recent guest speakers we've had on campus was that I think is just really cool was the Central Park Five. If you've heard of them, they were boys at the time who were convicted of a crime in New York and eventually exonerated. A lot of it had to do with racism and things like that. So they actually held a panel discussion on campus, and just about their experience and, kind of how all of that fits in today's society as well. So I thought that was a really great event. And not necessarily brought by USC, but still using USC facilities. Some big names we had Beyonce here a couple years ago in our football stadium. Pink is playing, or doing a concert in the basketball stadium, like later this month, I think. And we
That's
also
fun.
have like traveling Broadway shows, like Hamilton's been here, The Lion King, and they've been in our Koger Center, which is our Center for the Arts.
That's great. I have heard that Pink is a fantastic performer. So if you can get tickets to that, that would be incredible because I heard she's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have tickets to see that?
No, I don't. I
But those
don't, but
that would be great. Those are
yeah.
great. I love you have sports, you have like more like social justice and some societal speakers, and then you've got some celebrities too in the arts. So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, so much for meeting with me and taking the time. And I think this will be really informative for many, many students that have interest in USC. If you are watching this, you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Stephanie or she can direct you in the right place. But again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And best of luck through the end of recruitment season.
You. And thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.